If I wanted to select only one option among the group of possibilities, then I have to go with this radio button. What are the web hosting services we have? So it includes 4 types. One is free hosting, and we have a virtual or shared hosting, and also we have a dedicated hosting, and another one is colocation hosting. When the web page or when the documents has a well structured or containing the structured information, then we are going to have this XML. Hello everybody, welcome to the last session and last chapter of your second PUC's Computer Science, that is Web Designing. I am Rohini TS, lecturer, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In the first session of this chapter 17, that is Web Designing, we got to know that what is HTML, that is Hypertext Markup Language, and we got to know what is the usage of having this HTML, that is what is the advantage of having this HTML. Mainly in order to create a web pages, in order to make a or to design a website, we are going to use this language called Hypertext Markup Language. In short, it will be considered as HTML. So, and also I have got to know regarding structure of this HTML documents, how the document of this HTML should look like and what it must include. Like it will going to have a root node called HTML head. Within the head we have a title, and I have to close the title, I have to close the head. After that we have a body of a HTML document. So in that we are going to write a complete programming in order to design or in order to make any of the web pages. And also at last I need to close the root tag called HTML. Then we have got to know regarding advanced HTML tags or some of the commands. Then I have discussed regarding what are the tags we have in order to do the text formatting. And then I got to know regarding text layout. Then we have discussed regarding the types of number listing. It can be what plain numbers, capital letters, small letters, capital Roman numbers, and even small letter Roman numbers. And also we got to know regarding links, how to give a hyperlink, that is with the help of anchor tag, href, that is hyper reference. And also we got to know how to insert an image in the web page with the help of image tag. And we have an attribute called src or a source. Then we got to know regarding background. I can give a background color, I can use a image as a background, and we can use a fixed image as a background. This is what I have discussed in my last session. So in our today's session, we will be dealing with the tables, frames, as well as the forms, and then we'll see what do you mean by web hosting. Very important and most frequently asked question from this chapter. What do you mean by web hosting? Mention its types, that is what web hosting, and we'll see how domain registration will going to take place. Then we'll see about the XML, extended markup language, and also we'll see about this DHTML. Already we know the abbreviation of HTML, that is Hypertext Markup Language. If it is preceded by D, that is Dynamic HTML. And also we see the features of DHTML, and we'll see about this. What do you mean by web scripting, and what are the types of scripts we have in a web scripting. So this is what I will be discussing in my today's session and last session of your second PUC's Computer Science. So as we all know that what do you mean by table here? Can we create a table? Can we insert a table in a web page? Yes. How we are going to insert a table in the web page and how we are going to create a table in a web page? With the help of table tag, we are going to create the web page. Then what are the attributes I can take for the table? I can have a table data, I can have a table row, table heading. So those are the other tags that I can use along with this table. Already we have discussed all these content of table, frames, as well as forms in the laboratory cycle. So in the theoretical aspect, no need to worry about this table, frames, even forms. So you just need to understand what do you mean by table, what are the attributes we can include for this table tag, and how we are going to create this table. So here, as we all know that table is what? It's a intercollection, or it is a combination of rows as well as the column. This I can call this as a table, right? It has rows as well as it has columns. Then what are the properties it may include? So we can give the background for table, right? So we can give background table and I can align the table whether I want my table to be in the left of the web page or right side of the web page or at the center of a web page. So that is what alignment. And also I can give the background for the web page for this table. So I can include an image for the background and also I can give the background color. So that is BG color of a table. And I can also use an attribute called border. I can increase the size of a border, that is border attribute, and we can use cell padding as well as cell spacing. So we have attributes called cell padding and we have a cell spacing. So there is a difference between the cell padding and cell spacing. So just imagine here I have two cells, okay. So within this I just wanted to write ABC here, D, E, F. So what are the content I have within a cell? A, B, C and D, E, F. For example, if I wanted to let you know regarding the cell padding, at that time, this is a space between the text as well as within the cell. For example, if I wanted to have this text to be in the middle of a cell, or if I want that text to be at the left of a cell or right of a cell, or what is the space between the text as well as within the cell. That is what cell padding is all about. And we have a cell spacing. That means what is the space I wanted to have from one cell to another cell in a table. So if you consider this table, here we have 4 cells, like 4 into 4, 16 cells we have. I have to specify what must be the space between one cell to another cell. That is what we are going to call that as a cell spacing. And if I wanted to write any of the content within that cell, then I have to mention what is the space must be there between the text as well as within the cell. That is the difference between cell padding as well as cell spacing. And also I can use column span as well as row span. So for that we are going to use col span and row span. So already we know these are all the columns, right? So all these are considered as column and this will be considered as what? Rows. I wanted to merge the rows, and if I wanted to merge the column, then I have to go with this column span as well as the row span. So let me tell you one example here. Consider here I have a table and it has what? 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. It has 4 columns, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. But I wanted to merge these two cells. I wanted to have only 3 columns. I wanted to merge these 2 cells. How can I do that? With the help of this col span. So after spanning of that columns, how will be this table look like? It will be like this, okay. So these 2 columns will going to be merged together and it will look like a single column. In the same way I can do it for row also. And let me take one example here. Consider here I have a 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 rows. I wanted to merge these 2 rows now. How will it look like after merging? It will be like this. It will going to be like this. So it will going to merge these 2 rows and we are going to have only 3 rows instead of 4. This is what regarding column span as well as row span. So these many attributes we can include with the help of this table tag, and these are the attributes. So also we have a frames. So frame in the sense what? Complete web page will be considered as 100%. Okay. Consider, if you consider this panel, this will be 100%. So consider this as a complete web page. This is 100%. I wanted to divide it like 2 halves I wanted to have. This will be another 50%, this will be another 50%. But if I wanted to make a segregation of this 50, again this 50% will be considered as complete 100%. Then I can make it as 2 halves, again it will be considered as another 50%, this will be another 50%. So mainly you have to do the conceptualization. So you have to imagine how my web page should look like. So if it is 100%, then how can I segregate? For example, home button or home page will be for this much, and information will be for this much, and breaking news will be for this much. If you see the web pages of any of the news channel, at the time you just imagine that it is of 100%. They are going to divide that into number of rows, number of columns, and if they are working with any of the rows or a column, again it will be considered as another 100%. So in that way you have to conceptualize it, and we are going to have this frames in the HTML web pages. So next we have a forms, and what I can do with these forms, I can have text field. For example, if I wanted to feed any of the text, like if it is a single line of a text, I have to go with this text field. And also we can have a password field. So at the time when I'm giving a password or else if I'm entering any of the data, that should not be visible to the user. It must be abstract. That is password field, and I can specify the length of a password, and I can specify the type of a password, like whether it needs to be only numbers or combination of alphabets and special character. I can have some constraints or rules or regulation in order to have this password, and I can make it mandatory. So you might have seen that we are going to have some star symbol with red color. That what specifies it? That specifies the mandatory fields. You have to fill it without leaving as a null characters or a null value. So this will be the another field we can add it to your forms. And also we can have a hidden field text area. So as I told, if you are typing any of the confidential data and information, at the time you can use this hidden field text area, then it won't be visible to anyone. So next we have a checkbox. So why we are going to use this checkbox? For example, if I wanted to select more than one option, then I have to use this checkbox. For example, ABC. Okay, consider we have Arabic, Bengalian, and also we have a Canadian language. At the time, if you know all the language, you can select all these three options. In the same way, you can select the subject. For example, in your forms, you just imagine you are creating one web form. At the time, you wanted to allow the user to select more than one option. Then you have to use this checkbox. But this is different than this checkbox. So in order to select more than one option, I have to go with the checkbox. But if I wanted to select only one option among the group of possibilities, then I have to go with this radio button. For example, you can consider what, okay, so male, female, others. So at that time, out of this, you have to select any one. Okay, so it can't be any two values. You have to select any one out of these three options. Then we have to use this radio buttons. So at that time, you are going to get the values, or at that scenario, you have to use this radio buttons. So next we have a drop down menu. So for example, if you wanted to select any of the state, so if you wanted to select any of the country, at that time list of options will going to be shown to you. At that time you have to select any one out of that given option. That is what drop down menu. And also we have a submit button. Now I filled with all the data of my form. Now I have to submit. That has to reach to the server. Then I have to use this submit button and reset. I think I have missed some content in my filling the forms. I wanted to reset. I just wanted to fill it from again. Then I will go with this reset button. And also we have a image button. For example, if I wanted to have any of the image in my application or in my forms, then I can have this image button. That will going to allows you in order to insert an image to the form. So these many options we have in the forms. Next we'll see about the web hosting. That is very important topic, and it will be most frequently asked question for 3 marks. Then what do you mean by web hosting here? Web hosting means of hosting web server application on a computer system through which electronic content on the internet is readily available to any web browser client. So as we all know that we have a client and we have a server. Client is what? The person, one who is requesting for the content which is available on the internet. Then server is the one which is serving or which is giving the services to the, which is responding to the request of a client. That is considered as what? Server. So web hosting means hosting a web server application. I'm invoking the web server. That means it has to respond my request on a computer system through which electronic content on the internet is readily available. Already we know that we have some data and information which will be considered as what? E-content or an electronic content that is already available on the internet. I wanted to use some of the browser in order to fetch the content which is on the internet. Then how can I fetch that? In order to fetch that, we require this server. So that server will going to fetch the content which is available on the internet. Then again it will send back to the client. That process is called as what? Web hosting. So you just imagine this is an internet and here I have a server and this is the client. Client is sending a request. So when the request is sent from the client, that has to reach the server. Then this server will going to fetch the content from the internet. Again this server will going to send the response back to this client. This process is called as what? Web hosting. So hosting a web server application on a computer system. So in the place of a client, we are hosting the web server application through which electronic content on the internet is readily available to any web browser client. So I am going to invoke the server in order to get the content which is readily available on the internet in order to satisfy the request of a client. That is what web hosting is all about. And what are the types of web hosting we have? What are the web hosting services we have? So it includes 4 types. One is free hosting, and we have a virtual or shared hosting, and also we have a dedicated hosting, and another one is colocation hosting. I will just brief out free hosting. For example, I don't want to own anything. As we all know that fun is free. So, and free is fun. That means if I am getting all the data and information without any cost and I don't want it to have any of the web server, I am being a client, I am getting all the data and information whatever I want, that is what free hosting. So, I am not owning any of the server. And virtual or shared hosting. So, in order to host some of the web pages or website, at that time only I am going to take some of the server for rent. That is what? Virtual or shared hosting. And also we have a dedicated hosting. Dedicated hosting in the sense what? I have my own server in order to satisfy or in order to maintain the website which is owned by a particular company. Okay, if you consider any of the MNC's company or when they are doing international business and all, at the time they are going to own, they are going to have their own server. That server is dedicated to satisfy the requirement of their websites. Okay, that is what dedicated hosting. And also we have a colocation hosting. So in this colocation hosting, there is some difference between this dedicated hosting and colocation hosting. So in the colocation hosting also, we are going to own a server, but the maintenance of that server will going to be takes place or taken care by hosting services provider. But in the dedicated hosting, all the maintenance of that particular server is also going to be takes place within that organization. But in the colocation hosting, the services or whatever the maintenance of that server will going to be take care by server hosting administrator. That is the difference between this dedicated as well as colocation hosting. So here you can see that free hosting, this type of hosting is available with many prominent sites that offer a host of some of the web pages for no cost. As I told, free is fun. And we have a virtual or shared hosting. So in this, what they are going to do? So this type of hosting is provided under one's own domain name. I have my own domain name and you can have your own domain name. With a hosting plan with a web hosting company, one can present oneself as a fully independent identity to identify his or her web audience. Like they are going to have their own domain. So with the help of their own domain, they are hosting this server. So you can take the example of www.yahoo.com. They are representing themselves. They are representing themselves as an independent one. That is what virtual or shared hosting. And also we have a dedicated hosting. So in this type of hosting, a company wishing to go online and they are going to rent an entire web server from the hosting company. As I told, service administrator will not going to be bothered about maintaining all the content of this web server when they are owning. That is what with the help of dedicated hosting. All the maintenance will going to be takes place within the particular company or an organization. But when it comes to the colocation hosting, for those who can't offer dedicated hosting, but I require the help of my server administrator, then I can go with this colocation hosting. Maintenance will be in the hands of server administrator. Maintenance of a server will be in the hand of server administrator. So that you can see here, hosting companies offer a similar but less restrictive hosting, so known as colocation hosting. So in this colocation hosting, restrictions will be less because all the maintenance will going to be takes place by them. then no need to worry about all the constraints or some of the set of rules and regulation, because they know to manage, they will manage. My own risk is what? I just wanted to collect the data and information whatever I require, which is available on the internet with the help of my own server. That is what collocation hosting. I hope you understood regarding this web hosting. We'll see the next topic, that is regarding domain registration. So you just imagine you have a website, you have a collection of web pages, and you wanted to have it owned for your company or an organization. At that time, we have some privileges like web hosting team will going to allows you in order to maintain the web pages or a website of your company. Then we have to register a domain. Then what are the required information I wanted to have in order to register my own domain? Then they will require domain registration, email forwarding, and also site statistics, then business account, bandwidth limitations, and front page extension, CGI, Perl, and PHP script. So these are the required information in order to own my domain with the help of this web hosting. And also we can have like own unique domain or you are required to know these details. So when you are having that, you are supposed to provide these many informations or details that we have to determine the name. As I told, you can have your own name here. So as I told, you can have your own name in the domain, so that what you can determine the name and also think about the name, getting an ISP and web host, domain name server, DNS, and we have a register. And why should I set up a domain name? That means you must be unique, it must be catchy, that has to reach more number of audience. Then what is a domain name, alias, or domain alias? Like if you wanted to have any of the alternative name for your domain, that and all you have to think. If you say all these things, then you are done with your domain registration detail. So this is regarding domain registration. In the perspective of your examination, this is not so important and none of the question will be asked from this domain registration. So next we have XML, that is what? Extended Markup Language. Then why we are going to have this extended markup language? For documents containing structured information. So when the web page or when the documents has a well structured or containing the structured information, then we are going to have this XML. So this XML is a text-based markup language that is fast becoming the standards for data interchange on the web. So when I wanted to exchange the data over the web, then we have to follow this XML standard. That is on the process, under the process, then you can expect this can become the standard for exchanging or data interchange on the web. And we have some difference between XML and HTML. So as I told, HTML is what most flexible and it is not so case sensitive. Like for example, I can write HTML either in capital letter or even in the small letter. That doesn't make any difference to the compiler. But when it comes to the XML, we have to follow some set of rules and regulation. And for some of the tags in HTML, we don't have ending tags. So that is also considered as what? Empty tags. But in the XML, we must have a closing tag for every tag. So if any of the tag doesn't contain closing tag, then that will not come under this XML. That is what the main difference between HTML as well as the XML. So that document needs to be well formed and every tag has a closing tag in the XML. So we don't have a closing tag for some of the tags in HTML, but in the XML all the tag needs to have a closing tag. This is regarding XML. And also we have a dynamic HTML. Already I told you regarding HTML. So when it becomes dynamic, when it is not static, then we are going to call that as DHTML, that is dynamic HTML. So it is a collective term for a combination of hypertext markup language, tags and options that can make the web pages more animated and interactive than the previous version of HTML. As the name indicates, dynamic in the sense it is not static. For example, I wanted to have more fun content in my web page. I wanted to have some of the animation, GIF images I wanted to give some of the weird sounds and all. At the time, how can I make my web page so interactive? then I have to use this dynamic HTML instead of having only HTML. So when I'm working with this DHTML or a dynamic HTML, at that time it will be a combination of HTML tags. Along with that, I have some of the options. So with the help of that options, I can make my web page more fun, and I can make my web pages more interactive than the previous version of this HTML. For that purpose, we are going to have this DHTML, and it will going to allow the web document to look like and act like desktop applications or multimedia productions. So it will be more interactive than the static web page. So here DHTML refers to, that is dynamic hypertext markup language, refers to what? If you see that web page again and again, it will not going to look similar. That means for each time it will going to be changed. That is what it is moving with the time. So you can observe that one time if you click over a mouse, so if you click over a mouse of any of the text, the color will going to be changed. So all those kind of animation can be included with the help of this DHTML. And if I move on any of the images, it will going to start running, or it will just going to start smudging. So if I give all those animated and some more options to my web pages, then it will going to make it more attractive or informative also. So that is what DHTML refers to, the web content that changes each time it is viewed. So that is what the thing which you have to understand regarding this DHTML. And if I wanted to have these kind of parameters, or if I wanted to have my web page to be more interactive than the previous version, then it will be based on some scenarios. So if you consider the example of YouTube, so in the previous days we don't have an option called for example, you are just wanted to watch some of the videos in the YouTube. So if you wanted to watch, you just need to click on that video link and you have to open it completely, then you can view that. But nowadays what we are getting, if I'm just simply scrolling over my screen or touchpad over that video, it will going to start playing. So even without clicking on that video viewing, or it will start playing. That is what DHTML is all about. So it will be based on some of the scenarios, like it may related to geographic location of the reader and time of the day and previous pages viewed by the reader and profile of the reader. Based on your taste, based on your request and all, this DHTML will going to be very fun, and it will be more attractive, and it will be very user friendly than the previous version of the HTML web pages. So next we have some of the important features with respect to this DHTML, and this is the most frequently asked question from this chapter. Write the features or characteristics of DHTML. Most frequently asked question for 3 marks. What are the features it includes then? An object-oriented view of web page and its element. That is the first point. Then cascading style sheet. In short, it will be CSS and layering of the content. If I make some changes to my background, that should not affect on the foreground. That is what we are trying to do in the DHTML. And also programming that can address all or most web page elements. And then dynamic fonts. So you can have any kinds of fonts. We can give sizes. We can have faces for the dynamic fonts. So this is what characteristics or features or a concepts of this dynamic HTML. Let's see the last topic, that is regarding web scripting. What do you mean by web scripting here? The process of creating, embedding scripts in a web page is called as web scripting. Creating some of the web pages, along with that I'm embedding some of the scripts in a web page, that will be considered as what? Web scripting. So then what do you mean by scripts here? If script is nothing but it is a document that has what text, images, some audio files, video files, together I'm embedding everything, that I can consider that as a script. So if I'm creating that script and if I'm adding those content, then that process is considered as what? Web scripting. So a script or a computer script is a list of commands that are embedded in a web page normally and are interpreted and executed by a certain programs or scripting engine. Then here, if I wanted to do this web scripting, or if I wanted to have this embedded scripts in my web pages, then I have to use some of the programming language. So that will be considered as what? Scripting language. The programming language in which scripts are written or called scripting language. Then what are the examples we have for scripting language? That includes VB script, JavaScript, ASP, PHP, Perl, JSP. All these are the scripting languages. And also, for what purpose I am going to use this web scripting? Why I need to embed all these scripts in my web pages? That is what? For automating the processes on a local computer or to generate the web pages on the web. In order to generate more interactive web pages on the web or to the internet, then we have to have this web scripting. So then, what are the types of web scripting we have? We have two types of web scripting. One is client-side script and another one is server-side script. So what do you mean by client-side script then? So this client-side scripting enables interaction within a web page. So when we have an interaction within the web page, that is what client-side scripting. And then what about the server-side scripting? Enables the completion or carrying out a task of the server end and then sending the result to the client side. So when we are dealing within a web page, that is client side. So when I am dealing outside the web page and having a communication from server to client, then that will be considered as what? Server side scripting. I am writing the scripting in the server end. If I am writing the script for the client end or within the web page, that will be the client side scripting. This is the types of the web scripting, client side as well as server side. We are at the end of the session, end of the syllabus and end of the second PUC's whole syllabus of your computer science. I hope I made all the videos clear. Keep on watching, learn well. Let me meet you in the furthermore sessions. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.